So many teases. So very many teases, and we finally get the 1701 in the flesh and blood here in the corridors. We get the bridge. We even get this bizarre airlock moment, which looks like the most fragile airlock scene I've ever witnessed in science fiction. Enterprise NX-01 did it way better back in the day.
Yeah, what did you think of those airlock hallways?
I would never walk through any of them
That
in my entire
looks
life.
terrifying. You remember in Enterprise when they were all terrified of the transporter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you felt?
That's how I feel about these.
Okay,
You
well-
could not convince me to go across that walkway.
Let us not bury the lead here. We finally get to see the bridge of the 1701 in a way that we've been waiting for all season long. I'll say this, Cam. It does it for me in a way that the Kelvinverse never really captured. The Kelvinverse, I love the aesthetic of it, but it never really felt like the original series bridge. I never really saw that or grasped it other than the general shape of the consoles, what have you.
They made a creative choice, and they stuck with it. So I give them props because they didn't just try to replicate. They actually came up with their own idea. And hey, it's an alternate timeline. Maybe that's the way it went in that timeline.
Sure.
For some reason, I don't know.
People love the Apple Store in the Kelvinverse.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was fantastic. I think this one actually made the effort, or at least made the choice, to actually translate the original aesthetics versus like the JJ verse, which did its own thing. And I think this show did a really fantastic job of mashing up the Discovery aesthetics, which a lot of people have pointed at as being not at all like the traditional Star Trek aesthetics.
I'm fine with it. Doesn't bother me.
Sure, nonetheless. Yeah. But they kept those aesthetics, but they also brought in the color schemes and a lot of the look of the original series. And these two things actually looked really good together.
Well, look, as much as Giorgio wants to disparage the orange, it works for me, especially when you look at how they're contrasting it with the rest of the consoles. There's these deep blacks in there that weren't necessarily prominent in the original series, but for whatever reason, it works right here. Also, just the overall aesthetic of the bridge where we recognize the shape. But there were some very notable changes, though. Did you not notice the fact that in between the turbo lift and the consoles, there's actually a bit of an area to walk around behind the consoles, which is a big departure from the original series. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I realize that this is a visual reboot of the original series.
It also makes sense just in terms of maintenance.
Remember that episode where they're trying to get into the console and
opening up boxes. Yeah. There's sparking wires in their face.
It looked as if it was made out of cotton threads, and it was okay, So yeah, from a maintenance perspective, this makes way more sense.
Definitely.
And look, it just even seeing kind of the crew decked out in their uniforms on the bridge. Number one doing her thing. I just got sucked into this in a way. It hit these emotional beats that never really resonated for me in the Kelvinverse. I love the Kelvinverse movies, though, but maybe not Star Trek Into Darkness. But this was just a way to capture my heart in a way that I never really expected, though. Even just little things.
Did you discover your heart?
I did discover my heart, as they told us to do in this penultimate episode, Cam.
Yeah.
But look, even little things like, say, the communications officer who had a little Bluetooth device in his ear. I think they could have made something a little bit more tactile, reminiscent of what Uhura had. But I love the fact that they knew exactly what to do to make this moment really resonate for us in a way that we maybe weren't expecting based on what we saw in the Kelvinverse.
It's actually interesting, though. The Kelvinverse, I think, kept the Uhura earpiece a little more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else stands out for you? Because it wasn't just the bridge, though, but there were other
the turbo
parts.
lift with the handle.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing Pike walk onto that turbo lift and grab the handle, I was like, yes.
You say he grabbed the handle. He didn't hold on to the handle like we saw so often in the original series.
Would you you hold on to it?
Is it sanitary? How many people have touched that handle?
Yeah, exactly. All day, every day. There's only one handle.
Yeah.
Everyone's washing their hands before they go to the mess hall.
That's why they call it a handle. The other thing that pops out to me...
Washing their... I get it.
Yeah. the other thing that pops out to me here, though, is just maybe the look of the corridors. You brought this up on the podcast this week. How do you think this compares to what we saw in previous iterations of the original series?
Well, I mean, it definitely has the right color scheme going for it. It has that... I always think of the hallways of the original Enterprise being kind of warm. There's a warmth to it. It feels like a little bit of that hangout factor you feel within those hallways. You don't get that as much on, say, TNG, where they feel a little more like a library or something. They feel a little more solid, I don't know, like, what's the
Like
word?
walking around an elementary school after the elementary school has closed.
I
And
don't know anything about doing
well,
this.
no, you've never been to like your elementary school as a
Sure,
kid, where like it's like
sure.
say like a parent teacher conference, and
Or even like a museum. Like there's a dignity to kind of that space. And I get that more from TNG, whereas like TOS, it has that kind of like functional working vibe, but it also feels kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I think this really captured it very well with the colors. It did feel a little more cramped than we saw in the original series. It felt a lot more, I think, open space
But
on that show.
I would
But
argue though it's because you have the Discovery crew being evacuated onto it. So I
Sure.
think that's actually something that they purposely wanted to do.
it also creates just, I think, a better look for a show if you've got like kind of these hallways where they're very busy. There's
Yeah.
people in them versus like three guys in like a massive like airport hangar.
But don't worry, Ash Tyler is there to help people with their bags if they fall off their shoulder. So the other thing that we got to see, though, was the observation lounge. And that actually may have taken the most drastic change versus what we saw in the original series. So there are windows in there.
Yep.
The thing I was kind of bummed out at, and maybe I missed it, but remember we had that, tri-monitor
Yeah.
where it was like three-faced monitor.
Yep.
I didn't see this in this one. Maybe, I don't know. Did you catch a glimpse of that?
No, I didn't. But I
Okay.
mean, hey, maybe we'll get that, further down the road or something. Maybe I
Further
don't
down the
know.
road,
Or
huh,
maybe
Cam?
that's just a Kirk era thing. We never saw that on the Pike in the cage.
Yeah.
So
It's because all of the holographic technology has been removed from the ship as they
true.
screamed at us as we were watching this, Cam. Do you care about whether or not there's holographic technology present aboard the 1701 10 years before we ever really encountered it?
do I care? I care about very little because, my heart is so cold and dead at this point in my life. But I'm kind of on the side of maybe we don't use it. I think if you're going to go to all of the effort of creating this bridge, which evokes the original so well, they're not going the Kelvinverse route with doing
Yeah.
their own thing. They are saying, this is the same bridge that you saw. Yes, it's a bit of a visual reboot, but it is the same bridge. I don't think you can have holograms there.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't want them commenting on the lack of them all the
I
time.
will give you that. I don't think
We've
you
had,
need
like-
comments on it.
Yeah, but we've gotten this is like the third time that Pike has commented on holograms on the 1701. I'm just like, okay, guys, give it up.
Well, I mean, I think they established that Pike is scared of holograms, and of course he's going to mention it every time when there's one.
Okay, so that said, number one, we got an appearance from her, so I'm happy with that. I hope they give her way more to do on her subsequent appearances, though.
Can't give her less.